Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of ACM Insider featuring our very own Caryn Grafton. Caryn is a VP and Senior Loan Officer here at ACM and operates out of our Loudoun, Virginia branch. Caryn, how's it going today?
Going well. Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you here. So, Caryn, I know you've been in the mortgage business for over 19 years. I know you've seen a lot. You've learned a lot over the years, which is how you've helped so many families, individuals with home ownership, along with being so successful. So tell us a little bit about how you got started and why you chose the mortgage industry as your career path.
Yeah, so I kind of happened into the mortgage industry, probably like a lot of people. I was a marketing major from Virginia Tech, and I'd gotten into marketing and sales, and a friend of mine worked in the mortgage industry, and so she had shared a little about what she was doing there, and she was a loan officer. So she showed me how it worked there in the mortgage industry, and it seemed like something I would be interested in. So I joined in early part of 2003. So I've been doing this a little bit, like you said, close to 20 years.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So now that we know a little bit more about your own personal journey, right, in the mortgage industry, let's jump into the good stuff here. I want to ask you a few questions where you can provide some really great insights and answers for home buyers. So let's start off with this question. What would you say are the three most important aspects about buying a home?
Yeah, so I think like when you are looking to purchase a home, you want to make sure you do your research and you're well informed. I would say the biggest things, I think a lot of people get caught up with the details of, what every document says. But I think the biggest thing is trying to figure out what's my monthly payment going to look like, how much I'm going to need at closing, to make this transaction work, and what kind of loan am I getting. So there's lots of different programs out there. Right now, a lot of people are doing fixed rate programs. So your payment's going to stay the same every month for the whole term. So there's not, in the past during the mortgage meltdown, there was, different arms and things and where your payment would change, but it's not like that now. So really just getting approved for and really knowing, how much is my monthly payment going to be, my mortgage, taxes, insurance, HOA fee or condo fee if you have one. How much am I going to need at closing, and throughout the transaction to make this happen? And then, like you said, what kind of loan program am I getting?
Yep. No, I love that. And so, as we're talking about purchase, I think one of the questions that a lot of people ask is, when is the best time to buy, particularly if, they're renting and they're looking at, the payments that they're making, at rent, and they're able to move around versus maybe someone who's looking to settle down or they have a family or newly married. There's a ton of different scenarios. And with that 19-year experience, I know you've probably seen everything under the sun in terms of that. So from your standpoint and, your experience, when is the best time for a home buyer to look at purchasing a home?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I get that often. And, the team that I have, caring for, your mortgage is our slogan, but we're a bunch of approachable loan officers, and we really want to make sure that people, purchase when it makes most sense to them. We're not trying to push anyone into anything. And sometimes we'll even tell people like, why don't you get these things going to be able to buy. So it's always a good idea to reach out to see if it is a good time and, go with someone that you trust to tell you those answers. But I would say it's a good time to buy when you feel like you have a stable job and stable income, because you're going to be taking on a monthly debt and you want to make sure that you can pay it back. So have a stable job, you feel good about your job or the person you're buying with's job. When you feel like, you can qualify with your current credit. So you're going to need to know the answer to that. Do I qualify with my credit? Also, when you have an idea of what you can afford monthly, which a lot of times different lenders will be able to, give you more of a mortgage than you really feel like you can pay for each month, because there's other things that go into consideration that you might be paying for that we might not see as lenders, like daycare expenses or different things that don't show up on the credit report that you might be obligated towards. So I think looking at your budget and trying to determine what you can afford monthly, look at what you're paying now. Does that feel comfortable? Are you able to save with your current payment? Do you feel tapped out where you're at? Or, could you go a little higher? That kind of thing, to really feel like, is it a good time for me now? Because a lot of times people will say, well, I've got to get in this market, because
Right.
it's going, and that's not a reason to purchase a home. A
Yep.
reason to purchase a home is, because you feel like you can afford it and you feel like you can pay it back. And it's a good investment tool for you and your family.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things you talked about earlier, as far as, if you're in the process of looking at buying a home, doing your own due diligence and research, which I think is fantastic. Um, are there any gotchas that when you're meeting with a potential home buyer, particularly if it's a first time home buyer, where, they kind of come to the table of like, Caryn, I've already done all the research. I don't really need to know anything, and then kind of a lot of the things that you just outlined. It's a lot of people might get fixated on the monthly payment aspect of it and then totally miss the mark and forget to factor in and to calculate all these other expenses that they may not be aware of. How important is it, from that home buying standpoint, from that process, to have a guide like yourself who can come alongside you? You have the wealth of knowledge and experience that you bring to the table, but more importantly, you're really able to help guide them through that process, and you're able to help them avoid those roadblocks and potential pitfalls.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that a lot of times people don't realize, like, they think I have to have 20% to
Right.
put down because, that's what Susie Orman told me, or somebody like that. But that's not necessarily the case, because when people compare like a 10% down with a 15% down with a 5% down even, and look at the payment is very similar. They're often very surprised with that. They're used to avoid what's called mortgage insurance, which is something that you have to consider, not necessarily take. You can avoid it when you're putting down less than 20%. So working with loan officers, I think that's probably a big aha that people will find when they sit down and look at, okay, what's my monthly payment? Well, what goes into your monthly payment? It's your mortgage, your taxes, your insurance, your HOA or condo fee. And then if you're putting down less than 20%, you have to consider mortgage insurance, but you can avoid it a couple different ways. And so by taking a first and a second mortgage is one way, by buying out of it, by taking a slightly higher interest rate to not have to pay it, or paying it all as part of the closing costs. So that's very eye-opening for people. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of folks are looking for the lowest fixed rate that they can get, the fixed rate payment. And so I think a lot of times I'll end up kind of going in that direction with folks to try to get them, a nice 30-year fix where you're paying the same amount each month, avoiding mortgage insurance, which is something that a lot of folks don't want to pay, or coming up with a plan to get rid of it eventually.
Yeah, no, I love that. And as we're talking about, the monthly mortgage payments, and that obviously ties into the next question, which is, what can I really afford? I think that is such a loaded question, as far as being able to assess your current financial state, being able to look forward in the future as far as your financial state, any of your other ancillary bills that you may have to take into account. When people are coming to you and home buyers are asking that question of looking at what they can afford, what are some of the factors that they need to take into account to really be able to answer that question of what can I really afford?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question, because they got to look at what they're currently paying,
Right.
and if they can afford what they're currently paying. If they're currently paying an amount and they're able to save money in advance as well, then they may be able to afford a little more in a monthly outlay. You've
Yep.
got some people starting like where they're living with their relatives or whatever, so they're not really sure. And so we'll kind of if they're ready to buy in the future, we'll say, okay, why don't you put this much aside and see how that feels We can also come up with a number based on your income and your current debts. So, and give you an idea of what you can afford.
Yep.
So that's another way to do it. But usually it's kind of a back and a forth. We'll say like, here's what we think you can afford. How does that feel? Do you feel comfortable with that payment? And then they'll come back and say, well, you know what, I'm paying this now. I could probably do that. Yes. And so they'll look and maybe sometimes they'll meet with like a financial advisor or a tax accountant just to kind of see the savings that they would get with owning a home as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I like what you just said, where you're talking about the back and forth aspect, which again is just, it just hits the nail on the head in terms of why it's so important to have somebody, to have a loan officer that can be there to guide you, and not just any loan officer, but someone that you feel like you can effectively communicate with, ask questions to. And that really leads me to the next question, which is communication and I'm sure, you've had instances, and these are things you've learned over the year in terms of how to refine that communication process. And I know that from your standpoint in conversations we've had, you really view that as the key to an excellent process is communication. So for any home buyers that are potentially already working with a loan officer, or ones that are in the process of researching potential loan officers to work with, if we were to really narrow down that aspect of it from a communication standpoint, what do you feel like that they should be, as the borrower, looking for from the loan officer in terms of communication?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had currently, I'm working with folks that say they call these big 800 numbers, with large credit unions or big banks or internet lenders, that kind of thing. And you can tell right away the person you're talking to if they're interested in you. I'm definitely all about going local, because in our area, if you're looking to purchase a house, Atlantic Coast Mortgage, when they give you an approval letter, that means something. When you're making an offer on a home, the listing agent most likely knows Atlantic Coast Mortgage, and the fact that we take our pre-approval process seriously, that we're going to do our homework up front to make sure that the documents are in, and that we give a pre-approval that actually means something, and that their seller will end up going to closing with our buyer. So you're going to want to look local. You're going to want to get a referral from a realtor or someone that you trust, someone that's worked with us before, so that they can, vouch for our service and for, our quality of work. So being referred is nice, because people will come in already, feeling like they have somebody, to partner with, because when you're looking for a house, it's usually nights and weekends. And, that's when you feel really vulnerable, because you're trying to, you'll find this house that you love and you're like, I want to go ahead and get it. And
Right.
then that's when you really need a by your side to help you, win that house. And so us, Atlantic Coast Mortgage, being real, well known in the area and highly regarded, is going to help put your offer towards the top of the pile.
Yeah, I like that. And I like what you're talking about as far as not just the referral aspect, but also the local aspect of it as well, right? You may be able to have a conversation with someone, but that isn't necessarily mean you're communicating with them well, right? And so that's one of the things I love about, with you and your team in particular is how effective you all are at communicating with your borrowers, both in terms of the actual loan process, the loan products, being able to help them assess their financial situations, all of those things. But on top of that, going back to the local lender aspect of it, you have this really deep and rich pool of people that you can connect with, whether you're talking about realtors, financial advisors, or other people in the area, just because you've been sort of a staple in the area that you serve for so long, versus like what you talked about, if you're thinking about an online lender or a larger bank or credit union, or someone that doesn't really have those deep local connections. How important do you feel like that is to the process, beyond just being experienced and knowledgeable in terms of understanding the loans and being able to send out a status update? But how important do you feel like that aspect of being local, having those local connections, are to a borrower's success throughout that process.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think being local is a big deal. When you're a seller looking and evaluating 7 offers, your agent's probably going to recommend that you really, think twice about using a large bank or, an out of town lender, someone that they're just not sure if they're going to deliver.
Right.
Right now, there's only so many ways to set yourself apart. If all else, is the same with an offer, but having a local lender, someone that's known and has delivered over and over again, not just myself, but Atlantic Coast Mortgage has our loan officer is very high quality. So each loan officer area has put in a little bit of equity towards our reputation, and so we have a great reputation in the area. And people, if they don't know me personally, probably know some of my peers in the office, and they have forced that for us. So I think a lot of times, another thing that we do as a group is we call behind our offer. So after the offer is submitted, we'll go ahead and call the listing agent and just kind of make sure that they got our offer, that they know that our borrower is qualified to purchase, that they know that Atlantic Coast Mortgage is local, that we do our processing and our underwriting in-house, and that we can hit contingency timeframes, that we can close, we can get appraisals and financing done as needed. That's a big deal.
I love that. I love that whole aspect of being local, because I think there is so much value there, particularly when you're looking at buying a house. So like for you in the Loudoun area, and I know that you serve a lot of the greater parts of Northern Virginia in general beyond Loudoun, but the fact that you have all of those connections, it really just makes that process so much easier, which is part of one of the things we say is, we make the lending process simple, easy, and stress-free. And I think that that's a huge component of that aspect, is having those local connections so that you can just reach out. And when you're talking to a realtor, like, oh, hey, Caryn, it's great to hear from you. Or if somebody is looking at buying a home, and a realtor is working with you versus someone else, from the buyer's agent standpoint, then you're like, oh, you're working with Caryn, you're working with Atlantic Coast Mortgage. I know from my own experience that they get the job done. And then make that a recommendation to whoever's or selling the house, of saying, hey, this is a really sure thing right here. We're better off going in this direction versus, this other person who may be using a larger credit union or bank and having to go through, a lot more red tape or just more hurdles in general to get the deal done. One of the things. Go ahead.
I was going to just say, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I'm extremely proud of the loan officers that we have at Atlantic Coast and my peers. They definitely give us a good name. We also at Atlantic Coast, we have the best of all the products too, and the program. So, a lot of times people will just give you what they have, and they just have like one, program because they're a bank and that's all they have. But we have a variety of programs, and we don't, we customize it a bit to fit the need of the client. So having the experience and the know-it-all, but then also having the products to deliver. And then also we are able to, not always, but we can close quickly.
Yep.
And that's not always needed, but when it is needed, and working for a company that can work fast if needed, it has won a lot of deals for my clients. So it's a great place to be at Atlantic Coast Mortgage.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I would piggyback off of that by just saying, that is one of the fantastic things that I've seen with Atlantic Coast Mortgage versus a lot of other lenders, is really our ability to be agile, nimble, fast, and being able to navigate different issues that may come up. It's not any fault of any one person. It's just the nature of, buying a home. There are things that the buyer may not have been aware of, or whatever the case is. But the fact that we're always able to navigate those uncertain waters with a greater sense of surety, and more important, being able to provide that sense of reassurance to the borrower, of letting them know, hey, you're in good hands, despite whatever the situation may be. We're going to help you get through it. And, doing that and following through on that every time, I think is something that sets us apart, sets your team apart from a lot of others.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We'll get right in the mix and, help get the best outcome for our clients for sure.
Yep, absolutely. So since we've been talking about local, I want to talk about something in particular, which is, I would say, one of your specialties around construction. And so as we're talking about local, you know, a lot of builders. And so if for individuals that are looking to purchase new construction, what would you say they need to know about purchasing new construction?
Yeah, that's a great question, because a lot of loan officers will be able to do resale, but I think that's definitely my area of expertise. I've been um, doing thousands of loans in the new construction arena for the past probably 13 years. Um, and you have three clients when you're working with a builder. I'm the lender to several builders in the area. And when you are the in-house lender, you basically have three different clients, right? So you have the borrower who's purchasing a home. They're obviously your client, and then you also have the sales manager who's selling the client the home, and then you have the builder, the management team at the builder. So with the client, you want to make sure that they understand, what their monthly payment's going to be, how much they're going to need at closing, what kind of loan they're getting. So just the same normal stuff that you would if you were purchasing a resale. But you also want to make sure that they understand the timing of things. Because if you haven't bought before, you are getting approved to purchase and you're putting down a deposit based on, your specifications for the house. So the builder's taking on a risk because they are building the house to your specifications. So they want to make sure that you're qualified to purchase the home, because they're going to be putting it together the way that you wanted it. So also, you want to make sure the timing. A lot of builders, I work a lot in Northern Virginia. They require a deposit up front, and that can be, somewhat hefty. So, just understanding that money is going towards, in good faith, that you're looking to buy that house. And so we want to make sure that we get you reviewed up front for pre-approval, that we get your approval done quickly so that the builder's ready to build your house for you. You feel good about putting your deposit towards that, and that that money is going to go towards your closing costs and your down payment. That's your money. So I think just knowing the timing for the borrower is important, knowing what program you're getting. Now, the builder's sales manager, they're seeing a lot of clients throughout the weekend. They want to know who they talk to, who's interested. So communicating with them, letting them know, okay, spoken with this client, Mr. Smith, and they've shown some interest. They're going to make an application, letting them know that they've made an application. They look good. So spend your time with them. If they come back, they're going to want to have more information and we've been in communication. So letting them know that you've been in communication with their client, letting them know your client was approved. And then, there are times that things come up in the process where you need to escalate, right? And so just having a good relationship with the management team,
Yeah.
at the builder, let them know of those issues in advance, and also to let them know, some good things that have happened in the process, testimonials from clients. We have a lot of happy clients that we've served. So, they're working in the office. They're not always getting to know that information. So sharing that with them, the different, client testimonials and the feedback that we're getting from their product and from our service and that kind of thing. So it's been a nice relationship, an ongoing relationship. And usually there's some kind of incentive to use the builder's lender, to make sure that, the builder wants to make sure you're well taken care of with somebody that they recommend. So it's been a nice relationship, an ongoing relationship for the last 12 or 13 years, and one that I've really enjoyed.
That's awesome. So if I'm a home buyer, I've opted to, rather than purchasing a home that's already built, I want to go the new construction route. What kind of experience should I expect? And are there any differences between, and I'm sure there are, but between buying a new house, you're buying a house that's already built versus paying for that new construction? Talk to me a little bit about the experience I should expect as the home buyer, as well as, any gotchas that, again, over your 19 years, you've kind of realized, hey, I need to make this borrower aware of X, Y, and Z, just to make sure their expectations are set correctly.
Absolutely. So, well, first of all, it's very exciting to purchase new construction because you're getting to pick out things and customize it a bit to the way that you want. It's also going to be brand new. So, people that are purchasing new construction, they're usually pretty excited about it, and for sure, I can understand why. You want to make sure that they're still aware from a financing standpoint the timing of everything, so that they've got they know that their deposits kind of due up front. You're just kind of reiterating, working alongside with the sales manager. And then they, obviously, from a financing standpoint, know the products that are available to them, and then what their monthly payment would be with each. And also, like, what kind of loan program they would be getting, how much they would need at closing, how much they need now, and kind of how the deposit works and how it gets credited to them, how the lender credit that they're going to get and the builder credit, how that all works, and how the numbers kind of come into play. So I would say the timing of things is important. We do an approval up front. We do sort of approval. They write a contract. We do the approval within 30 days, but it's usually within 2 weeks. And so, and then when then meanwhile their house is being built, and then about 90 days to their settlement, kind of right around the time that they're doing the pre-drywall walkthrough, is when we'll look to lock in the interest rate and secure the lock, get the final details together, get the appraisal ordered, and all that good stuff.
I love it. To me, what I'm hearing is one of the most important things. Again, goes back to finding a great lending partner at the end of the day, someone that can provide that communication, that has the knowledge, that has the experience, who's kind of seen everything and has those local ties. That's a lot of what I'm kind of gathering from our conversation right now. And I know we're getting near the end of our time today, so I want to go ahead and start wrapping this up. And I want to turn it over to you by asking. I know this is kind of putting you on the spot, but I want to give you the final thought of the day. If you had to leave our listeners, home buyers who may be listening in to get advice, to get some insights, with one final thought of the day, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I think you should look at your lending, your loan officer, the lending institution as a partner. So, you can shop around and that kind of thing, but at the end of the day, you're going to want to go with someone where you have a connection with, and someone that's been recommended, because whether it be new construction and you're working with someone for 6-month period of time, or you're purchasing a resale home and you're working with someone for 30 days or 60 days, you're going to need them, and you want to know that they're going to be available for you, that they're going to look out for your best interest, that they're going to have a variety of programs that that you can go through, that you can they can look at the best ones, that they'll take the time to educate you and show you the difference between options with and without mortgage insurance, or different down payments, and that you feel like you can trust the referral that this loan's going to close. So Atlantic Coast Mortgage offers a variety of products, the timing, and when we meet our closing dates. So we're very reliable in that way.
Yeah, I love it. I always say that our technology makes us faster and our people make us better. And I think that's a very true statement. So for anybody who's watching, if you are living around the Northern Virginia area and you're looking to buy a home, I would definitely recommend hitting up Caryn and at least ask her some questions. I think she's fantastic. Her entire team are one of the best to do it. Caryn, one of the things I want to ask you is, where can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the best way to connect with me would be to call me. So my cell phone, and or shoot me an email if you just kind of want to run through some different scenarios, and I'd be happy to do so. When you meet people, they're going through at some point of the process, whether it be they're just interested and they just want information, or they're looking to purchase right now. I mean, people are going through a process at some point. And so depending on where you're at and what questions you have, we're available to kind of connect and take the next step.
That's great. And You can also find Caryn on the AtlanticCoastMortgage.com website. You can find her under our loan officer directory. And Caryn, are you on social media? I believe you are, but what are the best social channels if somebody wanted to reach out maybe with like a DM or check out your channel?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I would definitely say Facebook would be the way to go. Caryn Grafton on Facebook, Caryn spelled with a Caryn. And yeah, I would love to connect with you.
Awesome. And we'll put those links down in the bottom of this post too, so that everyone can connect with you. But Caryn, thanks for joining us today and sharing all of your great insights and thoughts. And to everyone else, thanks for tuning in. Look forward to catching you in the next episode of ACM Insider. Caryn, thanks again. We look forward to catching you next time, and we'll see you later.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
See ya.
Hey, really quick before you go, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to follow us here on social, and don't forget to like and share this content. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.